Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you're dialing in from. My name is Shaloo Garg, and a big hello to you from San Francisco. Thank you for joining the Ask the Expert session on Microsoft Global Social Entrepreneurship Program. And I have an amazing founder joining me today, Luke, who we'll just get to in just a minute from ClearSpace. But just a few protocols and some code of conduct before we get there. This session is all about going deeper into how we move, how we engage with the experts. Just a few protocols here, which is please use the chat to ask any questions. Questions will appear to all the attendees once approved by the moderator. If you want to upvote, if there are some really cool questions that you resonate with and you say, man, this is really good, go ahead and give a thumbs up. We love to see that. You can expect answers both verbally or over chat, since we only have 30 minutes, so we want to make sure that we are super efficient here. And then, of course, we'll share some resources towards the end once the session concludes. Just some general etiquettes, nothing surprising here. This session may be recorded. Please help our moderators. Do not spam or post any inappropriate comments in the chat. If there any ideas that you want to leave behind, please do that. And then there is a whole section around Microsoft Code of Conduct, which is right here. I won't get into details, but you can definitely find this online where the session page is. So with that, I will quickly go ahead and introduce Luke to you. I'm actually going to let him introduce himself, but let me tell you a little bit about the Microsoft Global Social Entrepreneurship Program and why this conversation is so compelling. So Jav, if you can please stop sharing so that we have FaceTime with Luke. Thank you so much. Microsoft Global Social Entrepreneurship Program was launched in February 2020 this year, and one of the reasons that we pulled this together was to bring the best to social entrepreneurs. So Microsoft as a company, it's one of our corporate philosophies around social impact, and we wanted to do something really compelling for social entrepreneurs. And what we decided was we want to bring the best components that are out there that are really meaningful for social entrepreneurs. So in terms of grants, access to technology credits, access to customers, so on and so forth. So far, we've received some amazing, absolutely stellar response. And when this opportunity and Ignite came around, I reached out to Luke and I said, let's chat. I'm really looking forward to elevating the awesome work that you're doing. So with that, I am going to give it away to Luke, but I did want to call out a few of my colleagues who've been behind the scenes working really hard to pull this together. There's a gentleman by the name Andrew Reed, there is Mariska, and there's also Ted Rodner, who's been my partner in crime for the last year and a half. Unfortunately, he couldn't join, but I just wanted to thank everyone. You guys have worked really hard behind the scenes, and we're here partly because of you. So with that, Luke, let me bring you in. Jav, can you please stop sharing the slides, please? Thank you so much. I just want Luke on the screen. Luke, go ahead and share with us, what your, oh, hey, Ted, how are you? Luke, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what your company is about. Would love to hear more about ClearSpace as well.
Thank you, Shaloo. So yes, we are a small team in Switzerland that stems out of the EPFL in Lausanne. We've been working for many years on the problem of space debris. We realized in 2009 when we launched a CubeSat straight into a field of debris from a collision between a Cosmos, a Russian satellite, with an Iridium satellite that generated a huge field of debris, that this was a major problem. So we've been working for many years within EPFL to try to find solutions to capture and remove debris from space. And in 2018, we founded ClearSpace because we realized that the space environment is changing rapidly, mostly driven by projects such as OneWeb and then the Elon Musk Starlink constellation. And we thought we have to accelerate and bring a solution to actually bring the tow truck to space. Essentially, that was the idea. And during 2019, we participated in a tender by the European Space Agency and won in competition with 12 other industrial teams, including the big industries of Europe in the space industry. We want a mission to remove a first object from orbit, which is really a transformative mission that leads the way into what space operation could be tomorrow. For us, it's really clear that this is a must, that we have to push the first domino to make a change towards sustainable space operation, because how we've been operating and spend until now is not viable in the long term.
Yeah, I remember the first conversation, Luke, you and I had, and it was fascinating. I remember, we talked about it, that the world here is talking about cleaner energy, cleaner oceans, and here you are talking about cleaner space. Like, it's just, when you think about it, it's difficult to comprehend. It's difficult to sort of absorb how awesome, bold, and ambitious that goal is. Why? Like, what's your personal story? Why did you go down this route? And what's your big picture vision here?
Well, I think for the founding team of ClearSpace, we had different reasons to go ahead on this project. Muriel clearly started on the problem because she realized that this is a major issue. I mean, there's the Kessler syndrome that has been predicted many years ago by Donald Kessler at NASA, saying that if we continue to operate like this, in a few years, it will just be impossible to operate in many orbits around Earth, mostly because it becomes too dangerous. And for me, when I met Muriel and she presented me her project a few years ago, I could see at the same time an incredibly fast-growing industry in the space industry, and in an exponential pain point. So that was absolutely incredible as a situation. So we all looked at it and started talking with other engineers, and we could see that everybody was really enthusiastic about the idea to bring this level of transformation into an industry. What's interesting is that if you look, for example, at the carbon offset, when you take a plane, you pay for a carbon offset. The plane still emits the carbon, right? You pay some money. There's some money going into some sort of a fund, but still, the pollution happens. In the space industry, you can actually solve the problem, but actually removing the problem from orbit. And that's really what drove our interest behind this, saying this is something where we can really build up something in the direction of a circular economy.
That's great. So for those of us who are new in this space, right, who are still on the ground, not up in this space, what is the role of technology? Let's start with technology first. How do you see technology being sort of super pivotal in meeting your goals and ambitions here?
So if you look at the history, throughout history, how this problem has been assessed or approached, it was so far only astronaut missions that were extremely expensive, right? And what we try to do today is to bring the cost down. What we try to do is to make it affordable for the space industry to actually remove their assets and to be environment neutral in space. And to do that, you need automation, you need navigation, you need robotics, you need to essentially build drones for space to bring this cost down. And this is really what drives us. So for us, the technology stack is absolutely essential in our development process.
That's great. Let's jump ship to Azure. All of us have had really, intense conversations around how Microsoft, and I'm firstly, on behalf of the Microsoft team, really proud to have ClearSpace as part of Microsoft Global Social Entrepreneurship Program. I think you guys are sort of poster child of some of the kind of companies that we want to work as an organization. I don't want this to be sort of, self-plugging our own technology, but I'm just curious to hear what is the role of Azure that is super critical in your growth plans right now? How do you view Azure as a pivotal point?
So today we see a lot of application that we can actually run on Azure today. Typically, machine learning, we do quite some work on the navigation, machine learning based navigation, because we need to have an automated system in orbit to be able to capture an object, which is really difficult task. But then there's also DevOps that we can run on Azure, a lot of virtual machines where we do actually simulations for our platform and for the mission itself. We're working on some sets of database of space debris and environment based on the environment information that we have, on the situational awareness information that we have, mostly to be able to identify the best possible mission profile. So obviously in the cloud, there's a lot of things that we run and that we can run. What we see is that there's way more that we can do than what we did so far, and we see a lot of potential behind this kind of applications. There's another dimension in our project, is that the project will be led by ClearSpace under an ESA contract, but then we have an industrial team of about 20 companies that work with us across Europe. So our staff working on this mission is going to be spread all around the place, and getting to a very effective way of working together, collaborating together around a single design is going to be one of the challenges we have to address in the process. And that's another thing where for us a cloud approach makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So just so that the audience get this, although you're established in Europe and you've got partnerships there, but you pretty much have a global foothold of all the markets that you're looking at, including US, right?
Yes. So for us, clearly the market overall, there's already collaboration. We have teammates that are in the US. So we have very rapidly started, because we need very specific engineers and competences in our team. You don't find them all in Switzerland, obviously. So we had to bring people on board from many different countries, and which makes that our own team is spread around the place as well. Often when you look for very specific experienced engineers, moving them around is not easy, and especially not during the COVID period we have right now. So typically we have teams in the US, we have people in the UK, we have people in various countries of Europe working together today on the mission, and it's going to intensify in that direction. We expect to have a larger footprint covering also Asia in the coming years.
Beautiful. So I know I want to give audience a chance for Q&A here. Just a couple of questions before we wrap up. When we talked about the Microsoft Global Social Entrepreneurship Program, I know I was literally screaming on the phone when I spoke to you. I was like, Luke, this is awesome, great stuff, let's go do it. As a social entrepreneur, someone who's seen the bruises on the ground, what's your perspective on a large company building a program and offering a program like this to the entrepreneurs? I would love to hear sort of a CEO founder's voice and his perspective on it.
So we look at this program with a lot of optimism, and we think it's great that large companies like Microsoft lead programs like this. Obviously, we will need help to build up our mission, and we know it. Typically, if you look at the ClearSpace One mission, which is the first mission in history to actually remove a space debris that is led by an agency, today, for when it comes, for example, to funding, we reached about 70% of the funding. So we know that we need strong partners that help us out throughout this exercise. And for us, I think it's fantastic to see companies like Microsoft actually taking on the mantle and driving and helping to move forward social entrepreneurship around the world, and that's fantastic from our perspective. So we look at it with a lot of optimism and motivation to see how we build it up from now on.
Beautiful, and we are grateful to you as well for joining the program. So Luke, what's next? Fascinating stuff. So right, what's your growth strategy in the next few years? What are the goals there?
So for us, the next step is clearly to assimilate our team. We went from 6 employees at the beginning of the year to about 30 now. So we're growing really quickly. So we have to assimilate the team and grow to get through the first key performance gates of our mission with ESA, which will fly in 2025. So right now we are in the design phase of the mission. And beside that, we're going to start selling other missions. There's a lot of other objects that would have to be addressed in space. Some of them, if they're not removed, might generate a collision that could actually double the number of space debris with just one single event. So there's a lot of work to be done there. For us, very clearly, the goal is not to do just one mission, but to build up a sustainability business model, and that's our next step, is actually to go forward and build the next mission as well.
That's awesome, and I wish you all the very best for it. Last closing comments before I pass it on to Ted for Q&A. There are a lot of aspiring founders there, Luke, from all age groups, from everywhere across the world. I know for sure Ted and I live through this on daily basis, right? What are your words of inspiration to specifically to social entrepreneurs who are thinking big, who are thinking impossible stuff, who many doors have closed on, and people have literally told them that, what are you doing? Like, you're wasting your time. What are your words of inspiration to those social entrepreneurs?
The first thing is that they told us exactly the same. We from the beginning, when we created ClearSpace, we had so many people coming to us and this is crazy, this doesn't make any sense, you will not be able to do that, this is impossible. When we started to answer to the request for proposal from the European Space Agency, people came to us and said, this is ridiculous, they will never select you. So I think the first thing is to believe in what you do. The other dimension is really important, is timing. Understand what the timing of the industry is, where you're in. How well is your project positioned right now, and why is it the right time to get started on it? We could see in our exercise that Muriel has been fighting for this for 7 years before we actually spun off the project into a startup. And within 2 years, we went from being nobody to the only startup actually leading a large mission in Europe. And this is only possible because the timing was right, because the preparation the work was done as well. So one thing is really important, is that you have to believe in it and be radical about it, and never give up, and then really understand what the timing is, and what is the way to move change, where you can actually really introduce change. And it's really important to understand your environment and to see how you can actually affect change through this environment, how you can move forward, what you can do yourself, where you need others. And typically for us, that was critical. We decided from the start that we're going to rely on larger companies than us. We have partnership with very large companies like Airbus, RUAG, or others. And typically these collaborations have not been easy to set up, but make a huge difference for us, because we managed to build a team where there's a real motivation on either side to move solutions forward, to bring solutions for the problems we're trying to address here.
That's awesome. Luke, thank you very much for your wisdom. I wish you all the very best on behalf of the Microsoft team here. You guys are going to rock and roll. Thank you very much for your time. I will pass it on to Ted to bring on any questions. Ted, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Shaloo. Yeah, we've gotten, Luke, a few questions about sort of the mechanics of how Clearview works. And so Morris has asked, are you focused on recovery specifically, i.e. reclamation?
So recovering a satellite in orbit this means recovering the satellite complete back on Earth is a very expensive endeavor, mostly because the satellite orbits at 28,000 kilometers per hour, which is extremely fast. And when you get back into Earth's atmosphere, you have to survive the re-entry. Typically what is done is what we will do, at least in the initial iterations of our business case, is to just slow them down. We slow down the satellites and they re-enter and burn up a little like a shooting star, what normally a satellite should be doing by itself. So essentially what we do is we replace the propulsion system of the satellite when it's not functional. That's what we do.
Got it. And then a related question from Catherine. Do you, that's sort of the disposal part. She asks, are you involved directly with the satellite companies to help manage the pipeline of new objects in space so they can be tracked and coordinated?
So actually, we are discussing with the satellite companies. So we have discussions with OneWeb, with Starlink, with Iridium, with all the different constellation operators around there, mostly to discuss how they're going to dispose of the satellites that fail. That's the discussions we have with them. And the pipeline of new objects are actually authorized in the US by the FCC. In the different country, the launch of constellations are authorized by the space agencies in most of, for example, in the UK for OneWeb, it's UKSA. And that's typically handled on one hand by the delegation or by the space agency of the country that actually does the authorization. One thing that is quite interesting is that when a country authorizes a launch of a satellite, they actually take the liability for it. And that's a problem on the long run for those launching states, which take a risk actually authorizing large numbers of satellites in orbit.
Got it. We've had a few people ask, how are Microsoft technologies involved in this endeavor?
So typically, what we use today actively is the machine learning stack on Microsoft Azure. We use it a lot right now, mostly because we need to use specific machine learning technologies to be able to determine where the object we have to capture is in orbit. Our system has to be able to autonomously detect, okay, that's my target, that's where it is, that's how it's positioned, that's its speed and rotations. There's other stacks that we use today on Azure. We use stacks typically, we use obviously virtual machines to run simulations. Another dimension we work on is to use a satellite simulator that we plan to run on the clouds. So there's quite a few systems that we use beside the DevOps stack that is proposed directly in Azure. The other thing, obviously, that we use in the company is Office 365 for the communication and collaboration across different companies in Europe, and there's quite a few people involved in the project all around the place. So it makes our work really seamless.
Great, and this is related when you touched on the liability that organizations take on when they put satellites in orbit. But there's a question: what incentives do private companies and governments have to proactively participate in debris removal?
Right now, none. Right now, none. They don't have any incentive to do that now. But the point is the following: is that today, to give you a comparison, if you buy a very reliable car and go drive on the motorway and it fails, you're a good engineer, so you know how to fix cars. You try to fix it for a couple of hours, but you can't. You see, it's not possible to recover the car. So you walk away and go buy another car. You commit a fault, right? You made a mistake of leaving your car on the motorway because you could have called a tow truck. In space, this doesn't exist today for a very simple reason. There's no tow truck. So anybody that actually leaves a failed satellite in orbit can say, oh, I did the best I could to try to recover it. Nobody could have done better than us. Now, if you look at the legal framework of space, the fact that a tow truck at an affordable price is created and put on the market substantially changes the environment, the operational environment for the space operators. And this is why the mission we're doing right now is so transformational, because this will change the way people, the level of excuse people have about the way they operate in space. So that's a huge transformation. And this is why ESA actually drove this mission as a service. ESA decided to say, we have to break this gridlock between technology and legislation. And that's what this mission, ClearSpace One, is actually doing, breaking this gridlock. And when this happens, then suddenly the environment for the space operators change, the responsibilities as well. So we believe that once the first mission has been flown and we can show a recurring cost that is reasonable, then the situation is going to be very different.
Got it. And changing gears, Shaloo, there is a question on where can people find more information about Microsoft's global social entrepreneurship program?
Yeah, no, thank you. So the best place to go is startups.microsoft.com/social entrepreneurship. You can also Bing search it. We have the criteria that we usually look at for selection of startups there, the goodies that we have in terms of grants, access to customers, technology, products, etc. So everything is up there, and you can just Bing search Microsoft Global Social Entrepreneurship Program.
Fantastic. And this is perhaps a personal question, Luke, but is there a scenario where we would just jettison the junk towards the sun? Why isn't that a viable option?
This is not a viable option because of the quantity of propellant you need to actually do this maneuver. If you want to move 1 kilogram from a low Earth orbit toward the sun, you probably need about 1 ton of propellant to do that. So the cost of bringing this ton of propellant into orbit and then execute the maneuver is too high to make it a viable use case. Mostly because you have to escape Earth's gravity field, which requires a lot of energy. So it's much cheaper actually to slow it down and get it to burn down in the atmosphere. Most of the new satellites are designed for demise. This means they're designed to minimize the footprint on demise and make sure that they burn up as clean as possible in the Earth atmosphere. So sending it to the sun is just too expensive in terms of propellant.
Got it.
So I have a quick question while Ted looks through this. Look, when you look at the market dynamics, right, do you feel like, how is the competitive landscape? Is it like heavy from a competition perspective? I'm just curious to know, when it comes to doing good for society, community, that's fundamentally what you're doing, right? Which has a rippling effect over the next number of years for generations to come, not only us. How would you view the competitive landscape and overall benefits?
So today, in our specific field of activities, there are other startups working, right? There's essentially there's two that are more advanced than many of them. There's quite a few small projects that have ideas. The question is how many actually manage to get a mission, and that's there's a very high barrier of entry in that kind of activity to get a mission, because the missions are so expensive. So you need substantial amount of funding to actually get into a mission. And but we have a very good relation with the competitors that actually work in the same field than us, mostly because we all want the environment to change. We actually all work on the same problem, and we all want to find a solution. So in general, what we see is that there's obviously, on the long run, there's going to be need for change in the regulation, but on the short term, there's need of change in the habits. And that's what we try to bring through. So just a week ago, I had a panel where we were the three startup leading the charge here in Europe and in Japan, together on the same panel and discussing, and we have a very friendly relationship, mostly because we know that how daunting the problem is and the challenges. And essentially, we're really happy that there's more actors than just us working on this problem. Beside that, there are large space integrators that work on similar solutions. Generally, one of the problems for a long time was if the perception that if there's no new regulation, there's no market for it, which we realized after starting to work on it is not true, because all you need is changes in license authorization process to actually bring the change that is necessary. And this change was not coming because there was no mission. That's
awesome. Yeah, no, that's great.
Luke, we've got sort of a startup founder question for you. If you're looking back on your journey so far, what's been your biggest kind of piece of advice? And is there anything that you would do differently today?
There's a lot of things I would do differently, right? You do obviously a lot of mistakes when you get started, and that's a very hard question. One thing is that when you get started, you don't realize how hard it's going to be, right? So you better don't think about it, because it's really hard. It's a tough ride. And getting through it without giving up, without keeping the pace and pulling when everything is really heavy, is one of the hard part of being a founder. The mistakes, I mean, we could spend the whole evening talking about all the mistakes we did. We had a lot of mistakes, but then at the same time, they were all opportunities to learn and to grow. So for us, it was let's put it like this. We did a lot of mistakes, but I don't regret them.
Thank you very much, Luke, for such an awesome conversation. Thank you all for joining. I want to leave you with a few resources and call to action. So to learn more about Microsoft for Startups program, which is fabulous, we have it globally. We've got some awesome team on the ground. Please visit startups.microsoft.com. To learn more about this awesome stuff that Luke and his team is doing, please visit ClearSpace.today. And then to learn about the program that we just talked about, as I mentioned, startups.microsoft.com/social entrepreneurship, and follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. Thank you all very much for joining. I wish you all stay safe, healthy, and hope to talk with you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.